Hey everybody, hope you guys all healthy and safe. So this is the Poco X3 NFC. It is the latest phone from Xiaomi. Yeah, Xiaomi's been pumping up a lot of phones lately. So anyway, I feel like this phone is a response to some Xiaomi fans who have been complaining that Xiaomi's phones have seen an uptick in price in 2020. You know, I heard complaints for the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro and the Poco F2 Pro that they were a little bit too expensive. I don't really agree because, to be honest, the Mi 10 Pro is really up there among my favorite flagships of the year, and the F2 Pro, ultimately, for $400–500 US, you're just getting a really good value considering it's a flagship chipset. And also, a major reason 2020 Android flagship phones have gotten more expensive is because Qualcomm increased the price for the Snapdragon 865. Qualcomm did this weird thing where if you buy the Snapdragon 865 from them, you have to buy the 5G modem, which is separate. It is not one thing. You have to buy two things. They are a package. You cannot buy the Snapdragon 865 and just have it be a 4G phone. You have to pay extra for that 5G modem, and that drives up the cost of components by probably like $100. So Qualcomm realized that this approach may be tough for Chinese brands that are used to pumping out more affordable products. That's why they started coming out with the Snapdragon 7 series, which also supports 5G, but it costs less than the 865. So anyway, this phone is the first to use the Snapdragon 732G. It's a chipset that supports gaming and AI functionalities. So that means for the most part, for most people running their basic apps, it's going to be very, very close to the 865. Like, you're not going to be able to see a major difference. You will see a difference if you run benchmarks. So you see the benchmark scores here. They are not flagship level, but to be honest, like Aaliyah would say, these are just numbers. Like, they don't really matter in real world performance. This phone, it's just as zippy as any other phone I've used this year, except sometimes apps don't load as fast, but that's not due to the processor. That's due to this phone only having 6 gigs of RAM. But that's not even a big issue. I'll go into that a little bit more later. But for the most part, this phone zips around pretty smoothly. That's because this is a 120 Hz panel. Now, it's just an LCD panel, so it's not as gorgeous looking as the 120 Hz OLED panel as seen in the Xiaomi Mi 10 Ultra. You can definitely see that colors in this phone, the Mi 10 Ultra, is a little bit punchier and pops a little bit more than the LCD panel on the Poco X3 NFC. But really, if you consider the price difference, I think the drop off between these two screens is okay. Like, this one's better, but not so much better. This is still a really nice looking panel with excellent viewing angles, and it gets a max brightness of 450 nits, so that's bright enough to see even under the sun. And you're still getting a really nice all-screen design, 6.7 inches, 2400 by 1080 resolution. This phone has a hole punch camera. It houses a 20 megapixel selfie camera. It gets the job done. I've never been huge on selfies. Now around the back, you have this quad camera system here. It's a quad camera system in that only 2 of the cameras are really, really useful. The other 2 are those 2 megapixel depth sensor macro lens that's really just for decoration. Like, you do not need those lenses to take macro shots or portrait shots. But the 2 main cameras here that are actually worth mentioning, the first one, which is right here in the middle, it's a 64 megapixel Sony IMX682 sensor. It's a sensor we've seen quite a bit already, and for the most part, I think performance is satisfactory. I do find the shutter speed a little bit slow, but you know, taking photos during the day, everything's gonna look great. And even at night, if you turn on night mode to get that computational assist, photos turn out more than capable, especially for the non-flagship price point. Now, the ultra wide angle camera here, it's a 13 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. So it's nice to see that it's a little bit better than the 8 megapixel we've seen in a lot of more entry-level mid-tier phones. But the ultra wide angle camera should still be used mostly during the day, because at night, the sensor is just not large enough. It really struggles with details. And unfortunately, for some reason, you cannot use night mode with the ultra wide angle camera. I don't know why, because that really would fix a lot of the problems. I'll talk a little bit more about the main camera later on. So this is a relatively large phone. It's almost the same size as the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. In fact, they are almost exactly as wide. It's just that the Poco device, it's a little bit shorter because it has a slightly smaller screen. But you know what? Despite its size, this phone is really comfortable to hold because you have this plastic back here that curves on the left and right side, so it fits in your palm a little nicely, and the screen is completely flat. Now, I've gone on record saying I actually like curved screens because I think they look so nice. But the reality is, if you have curved screens, most of them still will give you some accidental palm touches. To be honest, I'll deal with it because I just think curved screen looks so good. But whenever I do use a flat panel, I am reminded that, oh yeah, it is nice that you get no accidental palm touches at all. So you also have a headphone jack. So for those of you who complain about that, you'll be happy. Even if you don't use headphones on this phone, it's fine because the speakers are really good. This is a stereo speaker, probably the best speaker I've heard on a probably entry-level device. So stereo speakers, down here and up here. So I keep saying for this price point, but I have a confession. I actually don't know the official price of this phone at the time of me shooting this video. Now, by the time you're watching this video, the price will be available, so I'll put it in the description below. But I don't know the official price right now, and it's tough for me to come to a final conclusion because, you know, if this phone's priced at $320 US or $220 US, that's a huge difference, and that, you know, really changes my views of this phone. But there have been rumors that this phone can start as cheap as around $200 US. I think Xiaomi itself has been teasing it, like they had that tweet where they said you can get a 5G phone for 200 bucks. If that is the case, this is a really damn good deal. Now let's mention this phone runs on a Snapdragon 732G with a Adreno 618 GPU. For the most part, I'm able to play graphically intensive games at the highest settings without seeing frame rate drops or stutter. And the phone has a liquid cooling system inside that actually keeps it pretty cool. It did not heat up even after heavy gaming and heavy video watching for over an hour. Another major selling point is the huge battery, 5,160 milliamp hour. It is definitely enough for 2-day use. I know because I unplugged this phone yesterday morning and it is now the next day at 3:22 p.m. and I still have 54% battery life. So it's been more than 24 hours since I've unplugged the phone and it's not even at 50%. So that means this phone will last until tomorrow at this time probably. That would be over 48 hours. That would be like 50 something hours. And I've been using this too. If you look at my photo samples, these photos are all taken out here because I'm staying at a hotel right now, just a little staycation. And this is a really nice view outside the window. Okay, now let's talk about the cameras. Like I said, the 64 megapixel main shooter, it's actually really good during the day. You get excellent dynamic range. Now there is no telephoto zoom lens at all, so the max you can do really it's 10x digital zoom, and you can see that at 10x the quality suffers a little bit. So ideally just stay at 2 or 3x for a shot that's still relatively nice. If you're taking just a 1x photo during good lighting like right now, this camera can keep up with anything on the market right now. 1x photos gonna look the same. Really the difference in what you pay like $1,000 for versus this is the $1,000 phone can zoom a lot better and also can take pictures in really dark situations without needing to turn on night mode. But you know, both of these are niche use cases. For most people, they're not really taking photos in a dark alley. They're not trying to get 10x zoom all the time. They're happy taking photos during the day. They're happy taking pictures of their lunch, and this phone more than delivers. Now in terms of video performance, if you're shooting with the main camera, stabilization is actually really good, as you can see from these samples here. But if you shoot videos with the selfie camera, then there is no OIS or EIS. Alright man, so this is selfie video with the Poco X3 NFC. Dynamic range looks to be okay. Now in terms of software, this phone runs on MIUI 12. It's very similar to the MIUI 12 that I already tested very thoroughly on the Mi 10 Ultra, with the one exception being that this really cool live dynamic wallpaper that I really like from the Mi 10 Ultra is not available on this phone. At first, I didn't know why, because it seems to be just a software feature, right? I was thinking, how come this phone can't have that same cool moving wallpaper? And I finally realized why. It's because this phone only has an LCD panel. Okay, so earlier at the beginning, I said that apps load a little bit slow sometimes. That's due to the fact that this phone maxes out at only 6 gigs of RAM. There is no 8 gig or 10 gig version. And I think 6 gigs of RAM in late 2020 is starting to get a little bit tight. It's kind of like equivalent to 4 gigs of RAM a couple of years ago. But that's something you just have to settle for when you're paying $200, $300 for a phone. For most part, this phone is not slow. It's just not super fast like any of the other flagships I've been testing. Now, other bits that are worth mentioning, this phone comes with a 33-watt fast charger out of the box, so you're able to top up the phone from 0 to 100 in just a little bit under an hour. That's very impressive because remember, this is a 5,160 milliamp hour battery. This is a huge battery and you can still top it up really fast. And the haptic engine on this is pretty good too. I'm not gonna say great. It's not as great as the haptic engine on the Mi 10 Ultra. That's like one of the best haptic engine I've ever tested on the phone. But the engine here is still pretty good. And of course, as the name implies, this phone has NFC. That's also another feature that you don't always get in a mid-tier entry-level phone. So that about wraps it up for this review of the Poco X3 NFC. I think at this price point, now I don't know the exact price, but whatever it is, 200, 300, 280, 220, whatever it is, this is probably the best value on the market right now, considering all the things you get. You get a large, almost bezel-less, 120 hertz screen that zips around really fast, and it's a really clean looking UI, among one of my favorites. You have a 64 megapixel camera that shoots very smooth videos and also very good photos during the day. You have 2-day battery life, like legit 2-day battery life no matter how heavy you use the phone. And you have a headphone jack and really good stereo speakers. I think that basically ticks all the boxes for what people, basically ticks all the minimal boxes that people will want in a smartphone. Anything else that you want, like IP68 water resistance, which this phone does not have, wireless charging, which this phone does not have, a fancy zoom camera, this phone does not have. Those are nice features to have, but they're not necessities. Those are bonuses, and you need to pay for those bonuses. So anyway, that's about it for this review. I'm gonna have more content coming up in the next few days, a lot of videos. So if you're interested, please subscribe to my channel or follow me on Instagram at Ben's Gadget Reviews. I'm gonna head outside, man. It's a nice day today. So take care, stay healthy, and stay safe. Thanks for watching.